Wisconsin is a model for Illinois. I don't think any political conversation takes place in Illinois these days without Wisconsin coming up. They say, if only we could be like Wisconsin. We've got Democrats in control of everything down there. We have corruption that is just outrageous. Our business community is completely compromised. They're all Democrats or they're afraid of Democrats. There's just no support for libertarian and conservative causes in the state of Illinois, and there's a lot of reasons why that happened, and it's going to be difficult to undo. But the conversation switches to Wisconsin. Wisconsin used to be like that, and then in very quick, over the course of 4 years, 6 years, it turned itself around. So we look to you guys for inspiration. We also look to Michigan out of fear, and we look at Detroit, and we say, oh my God, there but for the grace of God goes Chicago. And so, the three states, I think, are kind of tightly connected together. We are here for one reason, and that is to stop the transformation of America by Barack Obama and the Democrats in the Senate and House and in state capitals all across this country. Now, we talk about the transformation. Mr. Obama talks about transforming America. I don't think most people connect the dots and realize just how deliberate and how comprehensive that plan is. We all know about Obamacare and what a disaster that thing was. Not everybody realizes, but Obamacare is working exactly the way it was planned to work. Yep. Right? This was not, it didn't stumble on implementation. These aren't unanticipated mistakes. It was intended. The whole idea of Obamacare was to destroy the private individual insurance marketplace. Okay? It was to consolidate hospitals. It was to get doctors out of private practice and into working for hospitals. The whole idea was to clear a way for centralized control over healthcare. You can call that single payer, or you can call it managed competition, or whatever fancy variation on the theme they want to do. But the idea was not to reduce health insurance costs. It was not to cover the uninsured, because that would have been easy to do. It was to destroy an existing healthcare system that was an obstacle to centralizing control. In education, you see the same thing. What is Common Core? Common Core state standards. This is an unprecedented attempt to centralize federal control over K-12 education in America. It's not about improving the quality of education in K-12 schools, because a lot of states have curriculum that are better than Common Core standards, right? And if you want accountability, if you want better tests, you don't centralize control in the hands of some public-private partnership in Washington, D.C. that's beyond control, that doesn't have any transparency, that's manipulated by left-wing interest groups and by private companies trying to sell proprietary curriculum. I mean, that's not a recipe for improving education. It's a recipe for centralizing control over education and for destroying a decentralized system of local school boards and private schools that stand in the way of centralized control over education. If you look at what they're doing in finance, it's the same thing. So you have Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank wasn't about improving the safety of the financial system. It wasn't about getting rid of too big to fail. In fact, it codifies too big to fail. It destroys all sorts of smaller banks and smaller investment opportunities. It criminalizes all sorts of activity. We've got hedge fund guys down in Chicago. They say, Joe, any day I could be marched out of my office in handcuffs, because what I did a year ago now is suddenly illegal. What was legal before is illegal now. Nobody knows really what's legal and what isn't illegal. If they want to go on a fishing expedition in my financial records, they would have no problem. They could send in a bunch of cops. They could arrest everybody in my office. They could take all my records. We all live in fear of the regulators now. And so they're not willing to put their name on anything. They don't want to be listed as policy advisors to the Heartland Institute. They don't want to show up at events. They tell me not to take notes during meetings. I mean, it's like a police state. Well, that's the whole purpose of it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. Because these hedge fund guys, these rich guys, the Koch brothers, guys like that, they stand in the way of centralized democratic control over society. So this is a familiar vision. Yuri Maltsov is going to tell us how that vision has played out for decades and for generations. But it's a dangerous, terrible thing. And it's up to us to connect the dots, to let people know that it isn't just about their guns, it isn't just about healthcare, it isn't just about schools. This is a systematic, coordinated campaign to transform America. And we got to stop it. And the best way to do that is through elections. It's through primary, running good candidates. In the general election, it's for voting for the best candidates. There's a series of booklets. I think there's probably 8 of them here. Each one describes a single issue in plain language. 10 principles of healthcare reform, 10 principles of higher education reform, 10 principles of privatization, business climate, telecommunications. The idea was to distill the best work of all the free market think tanks into just 20 little pages of plain English. No throat clearing, no long histories, no arcane language, no acronyms, but instead something that you can understand. You can read these things in 30 minutes and you will know more about telecommunications or higher education than any elected official that you sit down to talk to. I can guarantee it. Okay? And every booklet has a bibliography at the back, so if you want to do more research on it, you can just Google those titles and articles and you can pull up all this background research. So take a look at them, read them yourself, because first of all, you got to inform yourself. Secondly, inform the people around you, your kids, your parents, your co-workers, the people who work for you, your neighbors. Communicate with all of them. Take additional copies to hand out. If you live in a seniors facility, take enough to give to all your neighbors. Make a pest out of yourself. That's fine. Become a subject of conversation. That's okay. The Patriots Toolbox, it's this book here. It actually takes the 10 booklets in that series and puts them as chapters in a single book. This is a great reference work that summarizes all the issues and all the good research that's been done on these issues. So coming up is a Heartland annual benefit. That's on September 12th. Michelle Malkin is our keynote speaker. Joe Walsh, some of you might recognize him up here. He was a congressman from Illinois, a Tea Party congressman. But he's also going to be on the program and a couple of others. I think it's going to be a wonderful event. We're keeping the registration fee as low as we can. It's taking place out in the suburbs in Palatine. There's free parking. We're hoping for 800 to 1,000 people. I think it's going to really rock. It's going to be a great and fun and entertaining event.